We're going to get some new lore coming in the next expansion, obviously, but you got to know the foundation. Maybe you skipped Dragonflight. Maybe you ignored Dragonflight. Maybe you played through and didn't give a shit about the lore. Well, this is a quick summary of all the lore you're going to want to know before you get into the World Soul Saga, and Bellular seems to do a good job of summing it up. Let's see how he does this.
What was the point of Dragonflight? I mean, to many people it felt like a bit of a side adventure, but actually, it sets up the war within. It's a strange expansion though. Its plot was oddly paced, it was pretty messy, and generally, it just wasn't that gripping. So, if you've missed the details, this video is for you. If you feel out of the loop, you're interested in War Within, but you just feel like you don't know enough to actually understand what it is, well, don't worry. Today's video will get you up to speed. This is all of the essential lore you need to know, made possible by today's sponsor.
Overall, I think before he gets into this, I think that basically the point of Dragonflight's lore was really like a floppy soft reset, I'll say. You know, just kind of like a reset of the foundation of the lore. You getting it all, ready for the War Within and the World Soul Saga and everything else to come. And it's basically going to be the new leveling experience for new characters. So I think it does a good job of doing that. That was what it was intended to do. Nothing crazy about Dragonflight lore. Kind of boring, honestly. It's plain Jane, but it does its job of resetting things.
Tailored to you, working across every device. And Blueprint helps you do things like use cohesive fonts and a good color palette. That's how your site looks good by default, but of course you can do all of those further tweaks. They have got dozens of modern and intuitive options to display your content, and they can even automatically bring stuff in from your own social media accounts. That's just one thing. They're always building more features like bio sites. You can get a site in bio to complement your full site, and recently they've launched a whole new template that is aimed at designers, and they've also launched proposal documents to help you land gigs. They're really slick. That's just a taste, of course, of what Squarespace do. So if you go to squarespace.com/Bellular Gaming or just click that link down below, you'll be able to start your free trial. You can actually try all their tools and build a website with the trial. And then when you're ready to send it live, 10% off your first purchase of a site or domain with code Bellular Gaming.
There it is.
One of the biggest things Dragonflight did was to flesh out a whole era of Warcraft history. Over 20,000 years ago, Azeroth bore witness to the titanic ascension of the dragon aspects, but it was not a time of universal harmony. Many proto-drakes disagreed with the Titans' ideology. The aspects, in contrast, acted as obedient servants. They even forcibly altered proto-drake eggs, placing in the waters from Tyrhold. Now, these waters, infused with arcane magic from the halls of infusion...
This is the main story plot line throughout Dragonflight, is you had, the ones who were transformed by the Titans, right? And then you have the incarnates, right, who refuse to take kind of the Titan gift and believe that they should be given a choice, and none of this should be forced upon them.
Why our dragons appear smooth, while the other dragons, that we might call proto-dragons, why they appear primal. Now, 4 of those drakes who opposed the whole thing took a drastic step. They embraced elemental powers, and they transformed themselves into these, the primal incarnates. Their leader, Iridikron, harbored a deep hatred for the Titans. His goal was not just to bring down the aspects, but it was to set a trap to kill the gods themselves. This mammoth task to somehow force Aman'Thul, leader of the Titans, home, would require putting Azeroth in grave danger. Conveniently, this aligned with the Void's objectives, leading to an alliance of sorts. However, this coalition faced defeat in the war.
It's a weird alliance. It's one that Iridikron understands that it's maybe not fully loyal to the Void, but to use the Void. And Viranath, his sister, she talks to him about it. She goes like, when she confronts him about his alliance with the Void, she says like, "You trust the Void?" And his response to her is, "I trust its hunger." That's what he said. So he's going to use it in some way. We're still not sure how. But his major thing is he wants to help Xal'atath to do what she wants to do because he believes it'll bring the Titans to Azeroth. And once they're here, I don't know what it is, but he has some plan to kill them in some way. Now, obviously, a Titan is, eons more powerful than a freaking little incarnate is. So he's got to have something up his sleeve. But what it is, we'll have to wait and see.
Of sorts. However, this coalition faced defeat in the War of the Scaleborn. The Incarnates were actually locked away in titanic prisons. They were stuck in there in stasis for 20,000 years. Yet for the Void, this outcome was part of a larger plan. First, Neltharion secured the Incarnate's defeat by reaching for the Void in desperation, and that set into motion everything that led him to becoming Deathwing, and that of course led to the fall of Deathwing and the eventual attempt to bring in the Hour of Twilight. That plan, of course, failed. We were victorious in the Cataclysm expansion. But the Incarnates were due to return at a more opportune moment, and so they did. This time backed by the Primalists, who effectively were eco-terrorists. They were made up of the many sort of more nature-inclined among Azeroth.
These are basically climate change activists in their true form. That's what these guys are.
Were quite made up of like druids, shamans, lots of elves, lots of Tauren. They essentially believed that the Titans ordering of Azeroth was an unnatural thing that should be reversed. And that's pretty much a theme that is carried straight into War Within, though not with the Primalists, because as one of the baddies in Dragonflight, they very much got defeated. Okay, so now you understand a bunch of background stuff. Let's actually get to the meat of the expansion, starting with the pre-patch. Dragonflight's pre-patch revisited Uldaman, and it set two key stories in motion. First up, a disc containing the Titan Keeper Tyr's personality was found. Placing that in a Keeper shell would somewhat bring Tyr back. But the Infinite Dragons intervened, they stole the disc, and they threatened to break the timeline and bring about Morozond. The second, and far more important for the start of the expansion thing, was the aspects discovered.
The Infinite Dragons. If you don't know who they are an alternate version of your regular Bronze Drakes. That's what they are. So the Bronze Drakes are oftentimes seen as like the keepers of the true timeline, right? Of course, the Titans, they always like one true path forward. So that's what the Bronze Drakes do. And then the Infinite Dragons are essentially a corrupted version, or like a Void corrupted. Whatever it is, the events that lead to that corruption are still kind of foggy, but they are basically, they see infinite futures, right? Infinite truths. And that's why they're called the Infinite Dragonflight. And that's very much anti-Titan, anti-Order. And they're always trying to bring about the coming of their kind, right? They're always kind of time traveling and trying to bring about their own coming, because they are all previously Bronze Dragons that became Infinite Dragons.
They could restore their Oath Stones in the Dragon Isles, and they thought that doing so would allow them to get back the power that they had sacrificed to defeat Deathwing in the Cataclysm expansion. Rathian claimed the Black Dragonflight's Oathstone with help from Sibelian and his Outland Black Dragons. Now, they brought their eggs to the Ruby Life Pools. That activated the Red Oathstone, because basically eggs from all 5 flights had been returned. The Green Dragonflight then restored their Oathstone by renewing an ancient alliance with the Onaran Plains Centaur. Kelagos then, after essentially
still not sure really why we did this,
activated his flight's Oathstone by reuniting with his blue Dragonflight family. Nosdormu and Chromie then battled the Infinite Dragon Eternus to stabilize the timeways around their Oathstone. This was all success, but despite the individual stones coming online, the Mother Oathstone remained dormant. Now, this was the Oathstone that essentially symbolizes their bond with the Titans, and it helps to infuse the dragons with more Order magic. And if you're thinking this is a bit of a strange MacGuffin thing, it totally is that. The Mother Oathstone wouldn't turn on, and the literal nuts...
It's hard to get turned on. What are you going to do? Really, this Oathstone thing, it feels like a side backstory in the expansion. It didn't really take forefront. Once it was done, it kind of went to the background. So you could honestly go on, I feel like, to the War Within and not give a shit about the Oathstone lore.
Nuts and bolts reason is actually still unclear. However, the symbolism is completely obvious, though it's not actually followed up for
basically
a few more
trying to say they lost their
patches, and
connection
that
with the
means that
Titans.
before we deal with the Oathstone thing, we've got to talk about Sarkareth, the Dracthyr, and the Void.
Yes.
The Dracthyr, who were the new race added in this expansion, were Neltharion's experimental army. They were kept in stasis for over 20,000 years using Malagos's help. What happened to kick off this expansion, though, was that Kurog Grimtotem and the Primalists awakened them alongside Razageth. Their plan was to awaken Razageth, who was one of the Primal Incarnates, and then she would be able to break her mates out of jail. In doing so, they woke up the Dracthyr. Now, Neltharion had divided his army into 5 combat units called Wyrns. The Primalists decimated the Argent Vigil Wyrn. In fact, far more than decimate. Only one of them was left alive, and she is called Emberthal. The other worms did fare better in the attack, but some were still left pretty decimated. Still, though, for the first time, the Dracthyr were out in the world, actually having choices to make. One of them, Viridia, disbanded her healing wings. Cinderthresh and the Dark Talons decided to join the Horde, while Azurathel and the Obsidian Warders joined the Alliance. Emberthal, though, didn't have a Wyrn, and that meant that she became really the face of their cause. So, by the end of the Dracthyr starting zone, they had essentially fragmented off, and Razageth was free. That all led into the core content of the expansion's initial release, and that all culminated essentially with us defeating Razageth, but we defeated her too late. She was able to weaken the defenses around her allies, so the other 3 incarnates basically...
Just FYI, like, outside of the lore, the Razageth fight, one of the cooler boss fights yet we've ever done in the game, honestly. Pretty well designed, a good fight overall, decent mechanics, kind of fun. And so if you want to do a raid real quick before the end of the expansion, I would suggest doing Vault of the Incarnates. It was a good one.
Basically broke out of jail. We were able to escape, but they essentially
Emberthal did have a good story.
Large. Yeah. At this stage, Iridikron was very much their leader. Iridikron had plans that at the time we did not understand. One thing was made very clear in a cinematic, though. He would use Sarkareth. Sarkareth, you see, had heard voices from beneath the Dragon Isles, and in the initial experience of this expansion, we basically found Sarkareth's people just rummaging about the place, trying to find anything Deathwing related. The voices, though, they were deep. He believed that the voices were Neltharion, calling them to claim their legacy. Like always, the voices were actually not Sarkareth's friend. And with that, the true antagonist was actually emerging, the Void. Iridikron essentially had been using Sarkareth as a distraction. He was pursuing his own agenda while the other Dragonflights just chased the Sundered Flame down into Xal'atath Cavern and eventually into the raid Aberrus. He basically knew that Sarkareth's mission was totally doomed from the start. Neltharion's legacy was below, but it was just a legacy of torment and deception. In Aberrus, Sarkareth found a faceless one masquerading as his father, and he fell to corruption in the inner sanctum, which, by the way, was this rather beautiful room that set up this design language, this blue-black cosmic void, not to be confused with the sort of fleshy purple...
I know, yeah, that's our first true interaction with, like, you know, I don't know what you would call it, like open sky void or yeah, that purpley blue void, the more deep void, right? Like not, you know, not what's kind of comes about with the old gods, but something more void lordy kind of stuff. So the Sarkareth stuff, yeah, it was okay. Sarkareth was an alright storyline. It was really just a distraction, and it felt that way. Once you completed it, the end cinematic really led to nothing. It was kind of a dead end, and that was by design, I think. You know, really, it was Iridikron kind of sent us on that chase, you know, path where he let us kind of go do that thing on the side, go look over there, while I go do something else. And that's eventually what he ended up doing. And one really cool thing about Iridikron as a big bad, is that he's often kind of acknowledged that he fears us, right? He doesn't want to challenge us too early. And he talks a lot about that. And Vyr'nath has often listened to him. She's been more of the voice of reason, where Farak, his brother, has always been kind of more outspoken and challenging, and he believes he can just annihilate us. And Iridikron has warned him many times, like, be careful with these heroes. You know, don't challenge them too soon. And, well, he didn't listen, and it leads to his death eventually. But Iridikron has been a great schemer. He's probably one of the cooler big bads to come out in recent memory.
Blue-black cosmic void, not to be confused with
Glimmering
the sort of
surge, yeah.
purple tentacle void magic that was associated with old gods. No, with this, it was a bit more deep and dark, a bit more spooky, a bit more unknown. Basically, a new threat that was advancing on Azeroth. Okay, Iridikron and the Incarnate swept through the Dragon Isles like a force of nature. Farak was sent down into the Xal'atath Cavern to claim the power of Shadowflame, and then he turned his attention to claiming the New World Tree and Yggdrasil. But at this time, we did not know what Iridikron's real plan was. Not even the other Incarnates did. While we were distracted with Sarkareth, the Infinites sprung their time trap on the Bronze Flight. Iridikron's true objective was the essence of Galakrond. That essence, void-like in appearance, caused Galakrond, way back in the day, to endlessly hunger. He ate everything he could, including his own kin, to basically become gigantic in size and power. So Iridikron had traveled back in time.
That is the hunger that Iridikron speaks of. When he says he doesn't need to trust the void, he trusts its hunger. And that's the Galakron, the never-ending hunger, the desire to devour things like that. That is what Iridikron's playing off of with his little pact with the Void.
To just after Tyr and the still Proto-Drake aspect.
Farak was a dumb psychopath. He was.
In order to extract the essence.
He was, and Iridikron plays off of that. Even though they're supposedly siblings and he should care about him, he doesn't. Iridikron totally leads Farak down this path into the Shadow Flame and everything else. And again, just like before, it's all a distraction from his main plan. It's all just kind of, he's letting things play out and distracting the player characters. Why? Because ultimately he doesn't want to deal with us yet. He does not want to face us directly because he knows that could lead to his demise. Until he's prepared, he doesn't want to face us, which is a pretty cool way to, look at it, rather than the jailer style of a bad, where he's just like puny, puny mortals, like always talking down to us and acting like he could smush us at any time.
So that we didn't interfere, he and the Infinites gave us a dilemma. We could create two different timelines. In one path, we stop Iridikron, but Nosdormu is forcibly turned into Morazond, his more evil world ending.
Which, by the way, there's been hints that this is not necessarily a bad thing. And we know the Titans are, messed up, and really Nosdormu is a Titan affiliate, right? His way and his power and his timeline that he keeps so, delicately put together, that's a Titan thing. And we all know the Titans are not the best people. So maybe the infinite Dragonflight is the true path forward, but we stop it from happening, of course, because when we don't understand things, we try to kill it or stop it from happening. It's typical WoW.
In the other, we save Nosdormu, but Iridikron gets to slip away with his prize. We, of course, end up choosing to save Nosdormu and to defeat the infinite dragons.
I think if the jailer had completed his goal of opening up Azeroth, as you describe it, would have killed everybody. That's why we didn't let it happen. He was going to basically re-originate life.
That allows Iridikron to escape through a void portal, a portal that had a very familiar silhouette. Xal'atath.
There she
is. Got a whole video going deep into her story, so you can check that out for the full deets. But the quick version is, she's a mysterious void being and our primary antagonist for the War Within. But before that, Iridikron revealed his plan that he wants to force the Titans back home to defend the planet. He wants to force them to do that so that he can kill them, to put an end to them, because for him, this is all about vengeance. It is all about the fight. Just earlier, we had found a set of Naga writings detailing the Harbinger and the prophecy that she would fulfill before Queen Ashara returns. Now, the Harbinger was quickly worked out to be Xal'atath, and the prophecy goes like this. To corrupt a primal power, which we think is Iridikron. To reclaim the hunger lost to the ages, which is obviously the one from Galakron. And then to reclaim a dark heart left empty. That dark heart, by the way, is the amulet that we see Iridikron and now Xal'atath with. Basically, it seems to have been a prototype for the Dragon Soul made by an Altharian way back in the day. With that, then, the time story ended with some of the Infinites being led by Eternus, who, of course, we dealt with at the very start of the expansion, essentially defecting from the Infinites and deciding to enter into a loose alliance with the Bronze Dragonflight. They basically had a shift in perspective. Then, of course, we took a big shift over to handle the current big threat, which was the completely unhinged Farak. Early in Dragonflight, we planted a seed, right? Now, this seed is the Tear of Elune from the story of Shadowlands, one that was nourished by the souls of the Night Elves who died when Sylvanas burned Teldrassil. That seed was planted in the Emerald Dream for safekeeping, getting ready to bloom into a new world tree. Farak, of course, then took it upon himself to assault the Emerald Dream and the tree within. Farak's goal was to claim the tree's power for himself and to basically torch the entire world with Shadow Flame. With the help of Viranoth, the icy primal incarnate who actually defected over to our side because she essentially realized that Farak was so completely unhinged that she was now the baddie, so she moves over to us.
It wasn't just Farak's actions that changed her. She, and she has subtle hints throughout the expansion where she kind of looks over whenever Iridikron's talking. She realizes that Iridikron's plan was never to kind of free the primal, the proto-drakes and redeem the drakes and all that. It was really about revenge. And for her, that whole path didn't seem right anymore, so she defects.
So with her and a bunch of other characters, we defeat Farak and we defend the tree. The fresh world tree then responds in kind by granting the aspects their powers back.
Essentially disconnecting them from the Titans. So now the Primalists they no longer need the Titans, right? That connection to the Titans is now gone. Now they get their power from the World Tree, aka really it's Azeroth.
We're finally at the bit of the video where I talk about the Mother Oathstone again. Basically, the Oathstones were never really mentioned. They didn't work, our characters never really interrogated why, but in the process of actually defending the world itself, through the tree, granted the dragons powers back, pretty much equal to what they had before. And that, of course, renders the Mother Oathstone completely unnecessary because their power now comes from Azeroth herself. That is the massively symbolic part of this plot for the future of the game. And in writings found within the dream, we uncovered some further lost history. The moon goddess Elune actually conspired with the Titan Aenar to plant a world tree close to Azeroth's heart during the Titan ordering. However, the Allfather Amenthul did not trust nature to have such a hold on Azeroth, so he tore the tree out, leaving just the roots. That bit was by accident, though. Those roots we, of course, will encounter in the War Within.
Yes, the World Tree roots are going to be important. We all know that a famous N'Zoth line, deeper its roots will grow. Ushering in our coming, like there's a line specifically about the roots of a World Tree. And a big theory right now for the War Within is that, as we delve deeper into, because it's a vertical expansion, we're going to go underground. It is believed that the crater is actually left behind by a World Tree, the original World Tree, the first. So, and that's why there seems to be roots in there as we go deeper as well. We'll have to see. But the World Tree lore in general, it's going to be very important going forward.
We now move to Tyr. The earlier story about Tyr's rebirth came to a head after we defended Imirdrasil. Earlier we had uncovered his laboratory, and it was full of experiments on proto-drakes, attempts to infuse them with different kinds of magic and that sort of stuff. We also recovered a tool that allowed us to rebuild Tyr's body. All that was missing was, of course, the memory disk that was stolen by the Infinites. So, Tyr's Guard, an order of paladins, is formed to find that disk.
Silverhand.
That adventure takes them and us to an alternate timeline where we face off against Elisande in the Nighthold. And after some failed attempts to defeat her, she actually lends us the disc, saying that she's got everything from it that she needs. So, with that, we're able to get Tyr back online at some point in the future. He's going to awaken, and he's going to find an entirely different world, one that is in danger. And this is something setting up a whole other set of Titan and time-related mysteries for us to sink our teeth into. But for now, our focus is on the final patch, and is on Darkheart. In our final patch before the War Within, Xal'atath properly reveals herself. People from across Azeroth begin to experience the Radiant Song, these strange dreams, these strange voices. Meanwhile, Void Elves in Locust Rift start to detect void activity planet-wide, so we join Illyria, tracking those disturbances to Ulduar, and when there, we find Shadowguard Ethereals attacking. Now, the Shadowguard are void-corrupted beings from the Legion expansion. We actually ran into them when we went to Argus. Now, they're here, and they're working for Xal'atath. Ulduar's defenses hold, and we end up driving those attackers away. But it turns out the entire scenario is just Xal'atath's ploy to unsettle Illyria. Illyria's mentor, the Void Ethereal Locust Walker, recognizes Xal'atath.
Illyria's going to play a big role going forward. What it is, we're not sure. Her corruption could be the ultimate undoing of everybody, or her ability to resist it could be something. But she has a role to play. Xal'atath keeps fucking with her for a reason, and we're going to find out.
Locust Walker recognizes Xal'atath. He shares a crucial piece of information with us as well, that his homeworld, Koresh, heard something similar to the Radiant Song just before the Void Lord Dimensius arrived to consume his home's world soul. And so Dragonflight, while having plenty of its own narratives, serves as the prologue to the World Soul saga. It exists to challenge our perception of the Titan's influence on Azeroth, to essentially extrapolate things that us loreheads had been thinking about for a long time. The dragons are now not really tied to the Titans. They are tied to Azeroth herself. That maybe will be relevant later when the Titans return in the third expansion of the World Soul saga. We've also set up Tyr's return as a Titan Keeper. That will be pretty major because it seems he had quite a few clashes of opinion with Odin, a character introduced in Legion. This expansion...
Odin is certainly going to be relevant as well. He's basically... So Tyr, he sees the redeeming qualities in, you know, the denizens of Azeroth, including ourselves. While Odin is more of like, you know, a basic bitch, I'm going to do whatever the Titans tell me to do. I'm a lapdog kind of guy. And he's willing to do evil things, good things. It don't matter to him. He just kind of follows orders. He's a tip of the spear kind of guy. And that's why I think we're going to end up fighting him and killing him at some point.
Character introduced in Legion. This expansion also reveals Xal'atath's plan, and it establishes Iridikron as the saga-spinning antagonist. That's actually the point. There's a cinematic near the end of this expansion, but before Darkheart, where Iridikron basically goes to do a final message to Verinoth. He basically says, okay, well, you're not going to see me for a long time. And that is, of course, because he is waiting until the Titans decide they have to return to Azeroth. That's when he's going to spring his trap on them. Above all, though, what it does is it positions the Void as our primary threat. Not the old gods, as we faced previously, but something altogether more powerful,
something
more
bigger,
unknown, and more from the cosmos. Following that, we'll of course grapple with the Titan's legacy, all while guiding Azeroth's world soul towards a safe awakening. This is all stuff that will be continued in the War Within. So now, between Iridikron as our primary antagonist, what's actually happened to the Dragonflights throughout the Dragonflight expansion, and the core little lore details that you actually need to have in your head to understand the story, well, by the end of this video, that should all be in your head. But that is not all I've got. Be sure to subscribe because we are doing a full deep dive into Illyria, basically her history from the very beginning to now.
Illyria. Who wouldn't want to do that?
And if you would like that, but for Xal'atath, the primary antagonist of the War Within, good news, you can check out this video next.
Yeah, great video. The good summary of the lore, and basically what I think you can gather from all of this is there's just a lot of foundation laying in Dragonflight lore. That's about it. Nothing too extreme happened. Nothing too crazy. No real, true big bads came out of this expansion. It was just like everything's getting ready for this World Soul Saga, and that's hype. I'm excited for the World Soul Saga. I hope the story's good. I think this is gonna be Metzin's return to glory moment. You know, he's really laying out this story, and I hope they can deliver, because the hype is certainly palpable, or the copium, whatever you want to call it.